Arsenal 0, Liverpool 1. Who scored? Van Domselaar. Interestingly enough, we're going to get onto this point before we attribute goals to goalkeepers in this way, because I take a lot of... I'm not happy with it, if I'm honest. Okay. A late own goal saw Liverpool pull off a huge win away at Arsenal. As I said in the intro, Rach, this means they've reached the FA Cup semi-finals for the first time since 2017. A part of me had to fact check that, because like the old school Liverpool of like times gone past. I was like, surely they've won. Surely they've won the FA Cup in the past. What did you think of the game, Rach? You've already kind of shared a few thoughts and sentiments on it.
I messaged in our WhatsApp group, didn't I, going, oh God, we're going to have to discuss this one on the pod, and it was really rather dull. It wasn't the most exciting game, and more often than not, that's coming from a photographer's perspective, where I'm like looking to capture some action, and didn't really get very much. I thought Liverpool's game plan was very good. They were very disciplined in defence. I thought their midfield condensed the space, giving Arsenal very little room to operate. I thought they pressed Arsenal really well, made them uncomfortable playing out from the back, almost got caught out a couple of times, putting DVD under pressure, forcing mistakes. And I just think they held their game plan really well for the 90 plus minutes, 99 minutes I think they ended up playing. And I did think when we got to 60, 65 minutes, one of my friends next to me, Nina, shout out Nina, asked me if will this go to extra time and penalties? And I was like, yeah, like it's an FA Cup game, yeah, it will. But I said, I reckon Liverpool are going to nick this. And sure enough.
Just a small issue with that one. You have other friends. Who are these people?
That was Nina. That was kind of it.
All right, well, don't let it happen again. I would 100% agree. It looked like a very shaky start, I thought, for Arsenal. And I think the press from Liverpool, I was super, super impressed with. And we'll kind of get on. There's been a couple of comments on socials about maybe that's kind of a new change of gameplay, given the new management that comes in. Rachel's obviously going to quash that because...
I'm not going to quash it.
That's what it sounded very quashy before. Okay. But I thought, the initial kind of, opening 15, 20 minutes, we saw some pretty big mistakes. I never like focusing on big mistakes, especially when they're goalkeepers. But, there was pretty much a straightforward pass to Sophie Romanhag. It was, I think Sophie was awfully unfortunate not to convert that. And I think she should have done more. She looked really disappointed with that opportunity that she got, because that was pretty much a sitter. And instead, obviously, really super comfortable save for DVD. And then another, not too long later, you get that kind of pass back situation. There's a part of me that feels like the initial pass back to DVD was probably a little slow, and it kind of gave Sophie Romanhag that time to kind of like then pounce on the ball. She could read what was going to happen. Obviously it was going to come out this side because the press was coming in from that side anyway, so it was never going to go out that side. Then it felt like there was a bit of a pause with DVD playing it out from the back again, and then Sophie almost converting, DVD just about managing to save it. It kind of felt like that was already, it kind of felt a bit uncomfortable, and like Arsenal were on the back foot. What did you make of that? Do you think that is something to do with the change in management?
Well, it was actually something that Renee Slegers had kind of predicted pre-match. She predicted that potentially the defensive side of things would be her side's downfall. She said that Liverpool are not afraid of going high and pressing, and that's at least what they've been doing before, and then stepping out and being aggressive going forward. So, they've only played one game under Amber, so if another manager is recognising that is something Liverpool do in terms of the way they play, that can't just be attributed to the new manager. And I think, as I said, I think Liverpool executed their game plan very well, but I also think Arsenal were very poor, and I think actually there were glimmers of that in the West Ham game. Mm-hmm. I thought, and I know we didn't go into the West Ham game last time round, but I thought there were glimmers of issues that had been there under Jonas at the beginning of the season coming back into it again. I think the difference there was that West Ham went ahead so early that it gave Arsenal more time to get their arse in gear and change things and bring the game back. Mm-hmm. But those issues at the back, had already been kind of happening, creeping back into the game. And I think we saw a bit of that against Liverpool. I think the defence looked shaky. They went back to that because it was so clogged in the midfield. They were forced wide, and it was just that age-old go wide cross, mm-hmm. Like rarely penetrating into the box and getting any clear chances on goal. Didn't get a shot on target to the 65th minute. Like, that is a combination of Liverpool's good game plan, but Arsenal not adapting. And I do think substitutes should have come earlier. Mm-hmm. Like, I think they were just trying the same thing, rinse and repeat. And I think maybe had Liverpool gone ahead earlier, they might have changed things quicker. But with the timing that they scored, it just didn't seem like they had anything left to kind of change things. And like at one point, Amanda Illichstedt was playing up front from the 88th minute. And it just kind of tells you, but it kind of tells you where you're like, you've run out of ideas a little bit. And I think I hadn't seen Arsenal revert quite that much to the old way of playing at the beginning of the season under Jonas as they did yesterday.
You thought it was an Eidevall throwback?
It just felt a bit like they panicked and reverted.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think with the West Ham game, for example, I would argue that maybe they would not have been able to drag themselves back into it the way they did had it been September, October. And that just felt like the Arsenal of old, not the Arsenal that we have seen playing under Renee. And I know lots of people out there want to just say, well, Arsenal's players are just shit and that's why.
Strong.
I disagree with that. I think they have played some really lovely football. They've scored a huge number of goals under Renee Sleggers. And I just think they look like a side that were out of ideas. And part of that is down to Liverpool's game plan.
I was going to say, I think it's more Arsenal underperformed in that game, but Liverpool really stepped up to the plate.
Yes.
It kind of felt like that was the match. It kind of felt like Liverpool added that extra 10% and Arsenal lost that 10%.
Both things can be true, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, just touching there a little bit on Liverpool, in terms of the kind of switch to the back four from Matt Beard's favoured back five, I haven't had a chance to have a look at the socials, but you were kind of saying that people were sort of attributing the success of Liverpool recently to Amber Whiteley, but nothing. It wasn't a complete overhaul of what Liverpool have been doing before. But on this, Amber Whiteley said, I think it suits the players that we have got. We have got good ball players and loads of power up top. We want to be more aggressive on the front foot and the same going back. That is now 2 wins in 2 for Amber Whiteley and back-to-back clean sheets. We've even got a question in from listener Ivan, who has asked us on Instagram, after Liverpool's performance, is Amber Whiteley a strong contender for the Liverpool gig given the kind of strength of performances that we've seen so far?
She's someone who's been there a while and knows the squad, but at the same time, it's hard to make that judgment off the back of 2 games.
Is it another Renee?
One of which, arguably, they should have been expected to win. But I think if they continue to progress throughout the rest of the season under her, then there's no reason why not.
I'd also like to give a massive shout out to the female managers entering the WSL this year. We've had Renee Sleggers, obviously, Amber Whiteley stepping in maybe to take over, but maybe just as interim, Sonia Bompasta, and of course, Natalia Arroyo. So it's quite nice to kind of see that increase or the influx of female managers into the WSL. Again, let's talk a little bit about the goal because I need to give it some airtime. Okay, I'm not happy it being attributed to DVD. Like, it's a really, really good strike from Sophie, and I just think I don't know. Like, obviously, it's hit the post, it's hit DVD's back, and then it's gone in. And like, to me, that's not DVD's own goal. Do you know what I mean? I know she is the last person to touch the ball, but that for me,
if that was a defender though and the ball was not on target because it hit the post and it went in, it has to be attributed to the last player that touched it because the original shot wasn't on target and it wasn't because it hit the post.
No, I'm going to advocate for a rule change, if I'm being quite frank, to protect the welfare and mental health of players, like goalkeepers everywhere. I think there needs to be some kind of...
God love her, she looked gutted, and honestly there's nothing she could have done about it except maybe the original save of the shot, but like, you cannot do anything about a ball that hits the post and rebounds off you.
I think it's that she looked so upset. She had her head in her hands. She was lying on her back, and Katie McCabe looked like she was giving her some much needed love and support.
Not Katie McCabe. I thought
I
thought everyone says she's terrible and not nice.
She has her moments, but apparently she's like, it's like good cop, bad cop. Katie McCabe.
She was there for a teammate, trying to big her up and get her back up on her feet and tell her it wasn't her fault.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the worst thing was about that, and I could completely understand, is that DVD had such a kind of shaky game in the 2 mistakes that she'd made with Sophie that I think like it was compounded essentially. So maybe it wouldn't have impacted her so much had that not happened previously.
But listen, DVD, your team got 1 shot on target.
Also,
right, they could have done better up front.
I had to rewatch the clip over and over again because obviously I've got to find a way to make her feel better.
Obviously,
so DVD, I know you're an avid listener of Upfront. I know you wait on the recording every Tuesday morning. You're thinking, God, when's it going to come out?
The same time every Tuesday.
Pretty consistent like that. It went through 7 players to get to 7 Arsenal players to get to Sophie Roman Haag, who was the 4th player in that area. When the ball was actually struck, there were 7 players in the Arsenal box and 2 Liverpool players. 4 players alone were surrounding Sophie Roman Haag. So for that to have even reached her net and get to the back of her net, have a word. Have a word with the 7 people in front of you before you start going at DVD. You've just got to be very clear on that. I feel very strongly, very strongly.
Very much so.
Liverpool are only the 2nd side alongside Chelsea to prevent Arsenal from scoring this calendar year. Despite edging Liverpool in possession, Arsenal had 6 shots all game, only 1 of which was on target. A bad day at the office for them. Rach, you kind of alluded there a little bit to the issues that we're having up front. the only chance they had came from Freedom Mornham. And to be honest, Rachel Laws, whilst making the biggest deal out of that, very comfortable. So, and I would have done the same, to be fair. I would have laid around on the floor for a bit, got up, looked around, smiled to the crowd, that kind of thing. It wasn't the attacking prowess that we've come to kind of almost expect, I suppose, from Arsenal, given their current run of form.
Yeah, because as I said, they've scored a lot of goals since Renee Slegers has taken over, and that was an area that Arsenal were struggling with, was being ruthless. So it was a surprise, and I do think I'm just kind of surprised that Renee recognised that Liverpool would put them under pressure and perhaps didn't adapt, and maybe that's down to, some injuries they have in the back line and their back line looking shaky. I thought Olivia Smith absolutely terrorised that side she was on.
Unreal. Have you seen the memes of Olivia Smith? Is it taken out of pockets or whatever it is?
That age-old one. Yeah.
I do love that one. Gets me every time.
I thought she was brilliant. I think, arguably Liverpool could have created more with what they did, but I thought she was such a brilliant outlet for Liverpool. And I think with Sophie Roman Hogg back and those relationships getting better, they could be hugely dangerous.
Liverpool will face Chelsea in the semi-finals, which will take place on Sunday the 13th of April. Chelsea beat them 3-0 in the WSL back in November. What do we think they can take away from this win over Arsenal into that semi-final? That's such a big game for them. I'd be gutted also if I was Matt Beard to have been dropped out before something like that, before something is so historic. And it's not just the current reign that he's had, but it's just his legacy and history with the club. To have reached something like that, I think... I thought some prayers to Matt because, that must be heartbreaking.
I think Liverpool will need to be defensively organised again. It's going to be hard to smother those spaces in the midfield because and limit Chelsea playing through there because of the likes of Kira Walsh and the kind of another kind of arm of attack that she offers them, because they've also got really deadly wingers too. So yeah, I think that will be difficult because I think Walsh will dictate play a little bit. But at the same time, arguably Chelsea have not reached their best yet either, and are also struggling with some injuries too. So I think they are there to be got at, but it is very much about discipline. And I think we've seen that with quite a few teams recently. It feels like the game plan is to be in the game at halftime, in the game at 50, 60 minutes, and then take your chances. And I think, we saw that with Man City, West Ham. You saw that with... who were Everton playing? It's gone out of my head. But I just feel be in the game at halftime. It was the same at Chelsea. That's what it was when Chelsea scored the winner at the death. If they feel if they can be disciplined with their game plan up until 50, 60 minutes, they will definitely feel like they're in with a shout.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's something about Liverpool that kind of feels like it could unsettle things, and that for me feels super, super exciting. I think, also given when the game is going to be taking place, in another month's time, we're going to be thick into the other competitions as well. I think this is when we're really going to start to see Chelsea either completely excel or start to maybe come unstuck. I think with the level of fixtures that they have, I think Liverpool... I don't know. I think this is going to be a little bit of a mood booster, a bit of an additional string to their bow. They can kind of take down these teams. I mean, we've seen them take down these teams in the past, but I feel like having a recent takedown of a big team like that, I think is going to really boost them up.
Absolutely.
I'm all for an upset. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for an upset.